Hey fellow Would You lovers, it's Margaret. So do you ever have that feeling like you're sitting in class and you're trying to write down what your teacher says as fast as humanly possible, then you get home and you open your notebook and it looks like a total crime scene? Yeah, me too. And that's why on this episode, I'm gonna show you how to take Pinterest-worthy notes, even if your handwriting totally sucks, because mine does. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to 17's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of our future bullet journaling tips and tricks. Okay, let's get started. One of my biggest tips is to make your notes look pretty after class, not during. When you're in class, your number one priority is always to be taking detailed notes. And if you're anything like me, you'll be scribbling super quickly trying to catch every word your professor says. This means you won't have time to spice up your notes until after class. And if you sit down to beautify your notes and your handwriting is super messy, don't worry about it, just rewrite it. That way, when the test rolls around, you've rewritten it and you probably know it better and you won't have to study as hard. My second tip isn't so much a writing or creative tip, it's more of a way to keep you organized during your note-taking. This tip is to keep all of your subjects in separate notebooks. So, have one notebook for math, one for science, one for English, and so on. In college, I used to use a notebook kind of like this one, whereas when I was in high school, I would use a more standard size notebook. But my tips will work for all size notebooks and even loose leaf paper. I would also recommend using a separate notebook for all of the questions that you have that you can ask your professor after class. Maybe you're struggling with a biology term or there's a formula that's just not clicking with you. Having a separate notebook for all of your questions will be a great way to make sure you get your answers. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to making your notes look beautiful. Tip number 3, color code your notes. The first way I would suggest to color code your notes is to code them by important terms and keywords. Underneath the term, I usually put an explanation and make it look pretty by adding an open circle bullet point. Then, to add an example of that definition, I'll indent it and then further indent it with an arrow. Also, I'm not really sure why, but changing up my pen from black to a color really helps me remember the material. I also suggest using that same color to code them by chapter or topic. I do this so that when I'm reviewing all of my notes, it's really easy for me to find a specific chapter or topic. My fourth tip is to use diagrams. I'm much more of a visual learner, so anytime I can copy a graph or an illustration into my notes, I'll do it, because it'll make them look way more organized, very pretty, and easy to follow. After I draw out my diagram, I always put a bit of information and text surrounding it or underneath it. That way, I have both a visual reference and information written out. All in all, using diagrams and labeled illustrations really helps make the material easier to digest and also stops you from writing down any unnecessary information. My fifth tip is to use different headers and titles to separate subtopics within your notes. So far, I've been using a banner like this to separate my subtopic, but there are so many ways to divide your notes. Another super easy trick to divvying up content and also making your page look extra cute is to use different fonts for headers, titles, and important information. This will not only look super adorable, but it will also be easier on the eye to find information you are looking for. It is super hard to remember an entire semester's worth of notes when you are studying for finals or midterms, so these help you visually break down all of that content. It will really make finding the info you are looking for easy while looking pretty cute on your page as well. Now for tip number 6, declutter your page with Post-its. Let's say you're in the process of making your notes look pretty and you realize something you wrote down is not making any sense to you. Just grab a cute Post-it and write down your question. Or, if there is a really important bit of information, like a math formula, you can use the Post-it to make it stand out on your page. Then, once you have the answer for that question, you can take the Post-it off and write the necessary information below it. My seventh and final tip is to develop a system of abbreviations and symbols to make note-taking that much faster. For example, you might want to use a plus sign when you mean and in a sentence. Or if you're going to use the words without or with, for without you can use W/O and for with you can use W/. Or maybe in your class about the Civil War, you can just write down CW. And if you're a visual learner like me, symbols will help you remember things and make your notes look pretty all in one. And there you have it, 7 tips to making your school notes look super, super cute. I'd love to know in the comments below what you guys use to make your notes look lovely as well. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to 17's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of our future bullet journaling tips and tricks. Bye!